Hello, it's Lau. It's been quite a while since I made a video. Life has changed, the Tao flows, and we flow with it. I get a lot of emails still, though, and people comment on the videos. They have questions. Some become students, others don't. However, I do get a lot of life questions. And I got one question that basically wins the prize. It was a new question that I never get. The question goes something like this. Lau, we've been seeing you for a good long time. You've had students, you travel to China, you do all of these different things. In all the time teaching, what would you say has been some of the lessons that you've learned as a teacher? And how is it different than the lessons you learned when you were just wandering and following the path by yourself? And I thought, someone put some real thought into a question. So, in the spirit of answering and the spirit of meeting the person with that type of an intention, I'm happy to make this video. Here are some of the things that I've learned. Everybody comes to the path for the wrong reason. Because when you say, I want to learn Tao, you don't know what that means. You have no clue, hence you want to learn it. So how can you say you want to learn something, but you don't want to know what that means? It's not antagonistic, I promise, but it's true that people have an idea. Well, it must be something like this, or it must be something like that. It's not true. to find or actualize the Tao is literally something that you can't cerebrally meet. You have to experience it. The Tao can't be told. The Tao can't be named. No more than if I took a glass of water and I said, this is ocean water, but you know that that's not the ocean. And you can't find one thing that makes ocean ocean. It's water, but that doesn't make the ocean because lakes have water too. There's salt, there's, life, there's plants, there's everything you can imagine. But what part of it actually makes the ocean? And is there the ocean if there's 7 oceans? All bodies of water are connected, yet all bodies of water do not constitute the ocean. It's kind of the same thing with Tao. So when somebody says, I would like to learn more about it, this is fair. But when they say, I want to actualize it, or I'm interested in the alchemies, or any of the other things, they can't possibly understand what they are asking. But we all come to the path for the wrong reasons. Some come because they want the postures that will unlock the enlightenment of Zhangbo Zhuan. Fair. Doesn't work that way, but fair. Some people come because they want to go deep into understanding their nature and the mysteries. Again, fair. Fair. Doesn't work that way, but fair. It doesn't really matter if I want to come because I watch Dragon Ball Z and I want to be Goku. It doesn't really matter why you come to the path. All that matters is that when you're ready and it's your time, that you come. It doesn't matter which path you come to. The Sufis are just as great as people as ever existed, the Buddhists, any path that's your path. But how do you determine what path is for you? This is a huge question I get for all these years. How do I know what path is right for me? The answer is quite anticlimactic, but simple enough. The path that's for you is the path that's in front of you. That's why it's in front of you. However, like anything else that you deal with, it depends on your nature. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a tiger's nature. Let's say you're walking through a meadow, and in that meadow, you meet a deer. But that deer, she looks at you and bats her eyes, and you are the tiger. She batted her eyes at you, and she says to you, well, you're a fine looking creature, and you never really felt this way before, and you're fine looking too. And she says, would you like to walk with me? And so the tiger and the deer, they go walking. And the tiger says, "Are you hungry? Would you like to eat?" And the deer says, "Why, of course." So the tiger goes and mauls another deer. And as their face is caked with blood, he says, "You can have the liver." To which the deer is horrified. I, I can't believe you would do that. You just killed an innocent deer. Now the tiger's confused. But what? You were hungry, and I was trying to do good things. And now the deer is mortified, and the tiger's mortified. Never had somebody get upset. Why would you? And the tiger says, I just wanted to. She says, "If you want my affections, you can't have them because you're a monster. You're a monster for what you did to that deer." Now the tiger has to make a choice. The tiger has to accept and understand what he is. But he can't do that because he would never have walked with that deer and expected any other outcome. So this tells you that the tiger doesn't know he's a tiger. So in that vein, the tiger does what? The tiger, okay, I'll never do that again. I won't be a monster. I won't be a monster, because the tiger wants that deer's approval. The tiger wants that deer to think it's good. But he's a tiger. He is a good tiger. He's not a deer. But if he doesn't know his nature, well, then how can he know that that deer is a perfectly fine deer? So maybe he'll tell that deer, okay, no more meat, no more. And maybe he eats quinoa. Maybe he eats dandelions and all of the, herbs of the field. But eventually, his nature is going to come through. Because why? He's a tiger after all. If a tiger goes too long without protein, gotten by an animal source, his instincts and his nature will take over. And he will kill another deer. Maybe the very deer that he holds close, but another one. And then he will convince himself, see, I am a monster. All because he never understood his nature. A deer's nature is to do what deer do. Don't fool yourself. Deers aren't herbivores. They're omnivores. Deers eat ground nesting birds and all sorts of things because in nature, available calories are important. Tigers must tiger. Deers must deer. Deer are not stupid. Deer are not bad. They are, in fact, perfect because they're deer. But a tiger is a tiger. And he is perfectly good within his realm because he is a tiger. When you are looking for a path, your path must match your nature. When you are looking for a relationship, which I get a lot of relationship questions, your relationship must match your nature. When you are in a job, your job must correspond with your nature. When you are a tiger or a deer or a duck or any other of the wonderful parts of this world, what will tell you whether you thrive, survive, or fail will be the environment and habitat you find yourself in. This is correct. Because let's take, for example, this tiger, and we throw this tiger into the ocean. Well, tigers aren't meant for the ocean. So while they may be a perfect specimen and all the swimming makes them strong, he'll never thrive. He'll never actualize. He'll think he's worthless. He'll think there's something wrong with him. But is he? Is there? Mm-mm. He's in the wrong habitat. You take this very same tiger and you put him into a jungle. Now he can thrive. If you look at the environment and the habitat that you inhabit, the things that make your life better, the things that make your life not so good, are all the environmental factors. Now, you cannot change the nature of the things in your environment. Please don't get me wrong that, well, if they would just do this, then I would. No, this is a false logical fallacy. It is not true. But the things in your environment must be conducive to your nature. Now, tigers are resilient. They can be in a rocky place. There can be rocks. It's not ideal, but they're fine with it. They do well with water, but they don't have to have deep water. There's a lot of things that would be ideal, but we must have the resiliency. But the habitat itself must be our nature. In Taoism, we seek to understand our nature. When students come to me, what they do when they become students of mine is they spend the time coming to understand their nature. And many, many changes happen in their life without anything really changing. Because you understand that it's you. You must come to understand your nature and accept your nature. This is the only way. If I have a plant, let's say it's a flower, and the flower is wilting and the leaves are not doing so good. Do I tug and pull on the plant and the leaf? No. I have to look at the soil, the water, the shade, the temperature, and the sunlight. Because every plant has an ideal habitat. Some like shade, some like direct sun, not too much sun, not too much heat. Every one, you put it in the right soil, in the right location, it'll thrive, just like you. Here's something else that I've learned in all of these years. Many, many, many people are not born to the tribe or the habitat that they specifically need. Ducks will, in fact, produce ducks. Baboons will produce baboons. Interesting thing with humans. We are the only species that can adapt to anywhere on this planet. You will not find a snow leopard in Trinidad and Tobago. You will not find a polar bear in Rio de Janeiro. Not because they're not lovely places, but because their habitat and what they evolved for. But humans are different. Humans can adapt. That adaptation has bred into us a great wide spectrum of nature. Therefore, you can have two parents that are ducks produce, I don't know, a tiger as a child. This is because humans have adapted for many things. How many ancestries do you have? All of those ancestries are within you. All of those things are within you. And therefore, you may like nothing that your parents like. You may be nothing that your parents like. Does it make you a misfit and unlovable? No. But most parents do not understand, and most children do not understand that your parents' habitat may not be yours. And they may not understand that you have a habitat. They may think, this is my child. Therefore, this child needs my habitat. This is not the way. This is not the way. because the environment and habitat that the parent grew up in their time, by the time they become old enough and have children, the world has changed. The environment overall has changed. Therefore, the child will need a different environment. Parents should not grow up to be plants. Parents should grow up to be gardeners. This is why we have such an issue with people saying, no son of mine will ever, and no daughter of mine can, because of mind. I produced you, therefore you're like me. This is not the way. This is not true. It's sad if you think I should be, but if you deal with what is, then that's what is. Humans are oftentimes not born to the tribe they belong to. It's the way. In Taoism, even from ancient times, back to when the proto-Taoists were the Jianghu, many of the people who were born to Confucian families or otherwise, when they left home, they were excommunicado. Why? Because in Confucian society, you are a machine. The family's a machine, and you are an imperative cog, and you've got to be son number 1, 2, or 3, or daughter number 1, 2, or 3. And in that machine, that's it. That's your place. No lateral movement, no social mobility. You are daughter number 2. Your job is to be married to this guy to bring mutual advantage between houses, and you got no say. Some people, that was perfectly fine because their nature. But for those people who that could not be their nature, they would oftentimes desire to go study the way, the Tao. To leave the home was a very, very perilous thing because you were putting yourself before the family. This was absolute taboo. This was heresy. People would throw cabbage and tomatoes at you on your way out. But that allowed you to then never go back. And you would show up at the temple and you could begin to learn the way. Or you'd find a wandering Taoist, maybe a Buddhist. But it taught you a great deal about nature. If you continue to say, well, no, my parents are ducks, I'm going to be a duck, but you're not a duck. You will stunt yourself. You cannot grow. You must come to learn, accept, and live your nature. In all of the Wednesday meditations, when I had open Wednesday meditations for everyone to come, and when I had all the students, and when I had patients at the clinic, and all of the things, and all these 10 years that I have been practicing and teaching and traveling around the world, the biggest thing that would lead to people saying, I'm lost, the biggest thing that would lead to people saying, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, biggest people saying, I feel like I'm never going to fit in, I'm never seen, I'm never heard, I'm never understood. All of these things came because they did not know their nature. Simple as that. You know your nature, the hard part begins because now you got to find the soil, the light, the water, etc. Which means some things in your life that are here that are toxic or not, just not for you. We're not putting judgment on them. They're just not for you. They'll have to go. There are things that are for you. And you will have to make different decisions, different habits in order to allow those things into your life. This is what we call doing the work. This is the work. Purgation, consecration. Bring them into your life. When it comes to relationships, for example, people tell me, I don't know how to really have this, beautiful relationship. I say, well, let's define what that is for you. And if we can get some clarity and we can actually give at least a few good ideas, then the very next step is not, well, how do I go find that? That's not how you do that. The next step is who do you have to become for that to be possible? Because let's say the most amazing relationship fell in your lap, you'd probably screw it up because you probably can't accept it. Why? You can't accept yourself. You cannot accept something in your life amazing if you can't even accept that you're worth it. Now you're amazing. But if you think that you are a duck When you're a tiger, you can see the cognitive dissonance, eh? So this is the biggest lesson. It's the most direct lesson. People want to do the Qigongs and the Tai Chis, and there's a place for all that. It's not what you do in the beginning. It's, do you come to understand who you are, and then who that person is who does those things. Does it make sense? This is the distillation, because this is the starting point. Because if, let's say, you have a tiger nature, then guess what? Then you will have a path, and you will have a life that has very specific needs and very specific prohibitions. If you're a squirrel, same. If you're a sloth, same. When you come to understand your nature and accept it, it's so amazing how you can accept everyone else's as well. And most of your tensions and anxieties, they all fall away. And then you have to make real decisions. Is your job killing you? Are your relationships killing you? If you are the most beautiful elk with amazing antlers and the perfect bugle, and you are so in love with these carp, and I'm just going to go live in these carp. No matter how amazing of an elk you are, you're not breathing underwater. You're killing yourself. One of the things that I initially started to do with this is I started what's called a Find Your Nature initiative. It's a consult. I do it with my students. I've done quite a few now, and it's pretty life-changing. One of the things about it is that you have to come to understand all the things that make you you. It's not about personality type, because many people will say, well, the pseudosciences of this and that. You are a collection of tendencies. There's nothing that quintessentially makes you you. This is the Daoist concept of Pu, or the uncarved block. There's nothing that makes you you. Change some brain chemistry and you will have no memory of anything and no desire or proclivities. There were people in history that were loving and kind and amazing. They get a traumatic brain injury for some reason. Next thing you know, they become sociopathic and serial killers. You're not responsible, or you are not your thoughts. You're not responsible, and you are not your emotions. Those are a combination of brain chemistry, gut biome, morphology, neuropsychology, and biology. There's a lot that goes into that. You're not even what you do, except what you do is the thermometer by which you tell the world what you think of yourself. But no matter what you do, there will be tendencies. There will be patterns, right? These can be ascertained. When you know these tendencies and patterns, that's what the Find Your Nature initiative is. And so when people come to me and they say, I'd like to do the Find Your Nature initiative, there's a comprehensive lesson. In that comprehensive, questionnaire, they go over everything. They take some assessments and they write out stuff. Things like, who did you have to be when you were younger to feel love? Or give me a driving event that you consider your life pivoting on. These type of things. When we get to the real core of those things, you will see that most of your existence is a narrative. There are events that factually, objectively happened, but then through the abilities that your parents gave you to tell a story, to understand the meanings you have, your meanings come from how you believe about the world, the identity that you hold on to, your rules, your values, your special rationalizations you use to get out of, certain rules that you have, and then the way that your mind takes in information, we call your meta programs, right? An artist will take in different information than a physicist, will take in very differently than a strict mathematician or a chemist. All of these different ways of taking information to the world have a great deal to do with your nature. When you look at all of these meanings, then you understand that the story of your life is just that, a story. It is a narrative that says, well, these events happen. So, based on all these experiences, it means, what if you're wrong? What if it doesn't mean that at all? What if it doesn't mean that? What if you've been defined incorrectly? How many snakes look so poisonous and dangerous? Incorrectly identified. Wasn't true. Harmless as the days are long. The people who helped you and understand these meanings, these are paragons of happiness and moral turpitude, are they? What if the world that you believe has been pulled over your eyes? Because even Socrates said, he who controls the definitions controls the narrative, controls the story. What if your definitions are wrong? They may not be wrong in the sense that it can't mean those things, but if you aren't the nature that you think, if you're not the duck, you're the tiger, changes the context, which means changes the definition. These are the lessons that I have learned watching people over and over. They come to me for many reasons. They come to me because they want to protect their body out of the third eye, and they want to take the immortal pill and scrub. They've come to me for those reasons, and they're just as good as any. But how can you expect to ascend to any higher level if that's your goal? How can you expect to reach some nirvana or samadhi or any of the other, brass rings that people seem to go for, if the person that you have to be to attain them can never be actualized because you don't even know your nature? The three-part process for someone to attain or actualize Tao starts off with becoming what's called a Zhenren, or a complete or actualized person. That person now has the capability of understanding their original nature. An actualized person means you're a real person, both yin and yang, right? The dark and light side of you, all the things. You want to get rid of your anger? You don't want to get rid of your anger. It's important. You just need to know how to properly apply it and figure out what are the stories, what are the means you're using that trigger it, because you're using the anger to cope. You're just misusing it. There's nothing wrong with it. When you become an actual person and understand your nature, then you go to find your original nature. Who are you before culture and all these identities and all this took over? Who would you have been? What path would you have grown if you were completely untouched? This is really important. But this isn't an easy thing to accept because there are a lot of parts of that nature you're not really ready for yet. But then from the original nature, once you have returned to that, well, that's the yuan xin, then we can find your zhenxing, your true nature, which is identical to the true nature of the Tao. The intermediate step of the original nature is simply because it's kind of like some people use the aphorism, you become the universe, who's aware that they're the universe, becoming aware of the universe as the universe, right? Your original nature, let's say your true nature is that of a tiger. But first you have to come back to understanding what it even means to tiger. Not to be a tiger, but to tiger. What is that tendencies? What is that? Coming to understand consciously. This is the ideas behind mindfulness, this is the ideas behind be here now, all of these things. It's because you have to come to understand how your nature fits in the meta nature, in the big picture. How does the tiger fit in the entire ecosystem? Then you do the things that are for your path, and you leave the things alone that are not for your path. And when you start wanting things that are not on your path, now you have a line of questioning is, if I'm a tiger, why would I want that? What is this telling me about me inside? Now you have a way of coming to know thyself. You understand? These are the things that if you're going to work with a teacher, if you're going to work, maybe you have a great priest or a great rabbi or a great imam, hey, great. But these are the things that when people find them, their whole life changes without having to change all of these things. Maybe you change jobs, but maybe you don't. Maybe you stop defining yourself and holding yourself to a standard that's one, arbitrary, and two, that's not for you. Maybe you're using the wrong standard because you believed you were the wrong nature. This is, I hope, a comprehensive and a deep enough answer to quench the original question of what have I learned from working with people. Eventually, as a teacher, you realize that until you teach, you really don't know the work, because when you're doing it for yourself, it's subjective. When you get to be the third person, objective as well as subjective, you have this ability to go microscopic to macroscopic, and you start to see. The Find Your Nature initiative is my ability to help a person find themselves objectively so that they can interact with their own life in a more controlled way without being, haphazard and trying to run from answer to answer. There's no answers outside of you. You are the answer. The last thing I'm going to tell you is something my master told me growing up over and over. When you look at yourself and you say, I'm a failure, or I'm no good, or I'm worthless, or I'm anything else, get rid of this word I am, because the only thing you are is nothing. What I mean to say that is, every moment of your life is a snapshot in an ongoing process. Who you were at 10, and then 20, and then 30, who you'll be at 90. These are all very different stages of a very long journey that has no real end. Therefore, when you sit there and you say, I'm a failure, you're just taking a moment. If I take your blood and I analyze it, it's not going to tell you how you're going to be at 80. It only tells you where things are right now. But even when you get those results back, it's been days. So the person you are now looking at those results doesn't exist. That person's gone. There are no people can't be failures. They can fail by quitting or giving up, or they can succeed by continuing the process. But nobody can be a success and nobody can be a failure. Those are conclusions, and you're not at the conclusion of your life. So the saying that my master had was, nothing exists, all things are becoming. Your nature, just like the tadpole has a nature and the frog has a nature, and they're the same thing in different states, right? The caterpillar has a nature, the cocoon and chrysalis has a nature, the butterfly has a nature, but yet it's all one. So is it a caterpillar? Is it a chrysalis? Or is it a butterfly? The answer is, of course, it's all. Nothing exists. All things are becoming. I hope this finds you well. I hope you're willing to look at yourself and simply learn that you are everything you'll always need to be, but you need to learn to accept and allow what is. Come to find your nature, and then you have the ability to put the things in the environment and remove the things from the environment that will allow your nature to take off. Okay? Hope every one of you finds peace where you are today.